surprise.
It's continually what we have predicted. Nothing is a surprise. But of course, the urgent situation continues because no one's doing anything about it. So it does put you on edge.
What are some things, if you're going to map it out, that you've been right about?
I think the fact that many of what manifests, we think of a lot of things happening in life as accidental, but in fact, the mind goes very deep and the mind is aware of what is happening and what it's doing. So when it's pathological, we know that it's going to create a lot of chaos and a lot of danger, and that's precisely what his pathology has done. So when I or other mental health professionals say that we need to stop him, it's not stopping the person, Donald Trump. It's actually freeing him from the pathology that gets him and others in trouble.
The American people need to do something. They need to step up because we can keep sounding the alarm, but if they're not going to listen, this is on them at this point. Is it learned helplessness? I know I've asked this before. Have the people become habituated to crisis? Under any other president, any of the number of dozens of things this man has done, he'd be removed from office, there'd be mass protests. But somehow, he hangs on and he's still popular.
Exactly. That's why allowing a mentally impaired president to continue in his power is especially dangerous, as opposed to a merely criminally dangerous president. Studies have shown that actually delusional leaders are more effective in beguiling others than those who state similar beliefs out of strategy. That's why the mentally impaired president is all the more dangerous than just a criminal president.
How would you explain that? What are some details about why? Because that's very counterintuitive. Why a mentally unwell person with power is more dangerous than someone who doesn't have those attributes?
Because we think when someone is impaired that they're merely disabled, but that's not the case. When you're cognitively disabled, it may empower some of the more primitive emotional forces, if you will, to take over, and that can be far more powerful than any rational decision-making.
And what are some of those primitive forces? I'm thinking specifically about Trump's rally in El Paso. The lying, we know he lies. The stochastic violence, the scripted violence. We had one of his Trump hooligan supporters attack a reporter. We had that man in the van. And isn't it something, too, going back to social pathology, how all these things have been forgotten? You just had a Trump supporter try to literally launch a decapitation strike against the Democratic leadership of this country. Blow people up. It's not even in the news anymore. You had a man go and shoot up a newspaper, kill all those people. Not in the news anymore. Las Vegas, 500 people hurt, 50 people at least dead. Not in the news anymore. How is this happening? We've lost the capacity to remember?
Well, human beings are malleable creatures. We adjust to all kinds of levels of pathology. Why we actually live in a pretty violent world. I teach my students that the world starts in a place of violence and we're trying to mitigate that and know that we can change the situation. We're very adaptable. So that's how you can have states of immense pathology and all kinds of atrocities can happen, and yet the population adjusts. And as you fall into a more pathological state, you actually feel that things are less wrong or less awry because your ability to recognize that something is a problem also goes with your falling more deeply into a problem.
The physiological response to this type of stress and anxiety and threats of violence, what is this doing to people's bodies, to their brains?
Well, we know that stress levels are the highest in our memory, higher than any time since World War I. So if you think of all the crises that have happened in between, we're actually in a worse state than all of those. And we know that anxiety levels are up to 70% higher than 2 years ago. So those